Welcome back to Scene with Diona. Thank you guys so much for joining us again. Today we're joined here with Nathalie Noisette. And Nathalie is the founder and owner of Mental Money Podcast. And there she provides information on for access to capital, resources, and education for entrepreneurs. And so we're very happy to be joined here with Nathalie. Thank you for coming today.
You're very welcome, and it's an honor to be here.
So Nathalie and I actually connected on TikTok.
Mhm.
She reposted a TikTok that I had done, and I went to visit your site, Nathalie, and it was beautiful. And I really loved what you were doing for the entrepreneur community. And
Mhm.
so I hopped in her comments and said, "Hey, would you like to be a podcast guest?" And she was very
Mhm.
receptive, and we had a great conversation. So Nathalie, I'm very eager to share with my audience the information that you have and the knowledge that you have around grant funding opportunities. I see that you're a
Sure.
grant consultant and that you do some one-on-one coaching with small
Mhm.
businesses. And
Mhm.
so, can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I actually did not start out teaching about grants. I was primarily in like the personal finance space, primarily
Mhm.
credit. So if you look up my name, you'll see a lot of content as far as like teaching about personal credit, getting into like home ownership, um, leveraging your credit to build wealth, to build, to eliminate debt, to be able to have access to capital. Because when you're paying off interest and you're not beating it, you don't have money to play around with, like kind of things
Right,
like that.
right,
Giving resources, tools there, because I still believe, and you'll find the resources in the articles and books and stuff that I've written, that it's a foundational element to your financial journey. And
hmm
as we're going through like the funding and like all the other elements, people are starting to see that it's coming up. And I'm glad you mentioned, well, we're talking about this because I'm actually going to post something about it today, because
okay,
one of the grant applications that we're going through, they're asking about your credit, right?
right,
It
right,
mentions creditworthiness, and people don't think it's going to come up and it's going to sneak up on you, but it always does, right?
hmm
So that's why I started there, because on my own entrepreneurship journey, I realized that you need money to make
right.
this work.
That's right. That's
It
right.
takes a lot of money to make this work.
Yes, you have
And
to spend money to make money. That's right.
okay, and I was going left and right, as because I'm a person that somewhat shameless, because when I need
hmm
something done, I got to get it done. All right. So
Right,
without, doing anything strange, but I was going around, I was like, going to other business owners. What, how do you do this? How do you fund this?
right,
How do you make this work? Like, I'm not going to try to sit here and rob Peter to pay Paul
right,
just to try to say I'm an entrepreneur. I need to make this efficient, right? How do I
right,
get this money? Where's all this money that people say is just out here that's available and accessible to everyone? And that's kind of where the journey started. Well, they're like, you can go to your family and friends. And I'm like, I don't have family and friends that can give me $100,000 to infuse into my business.
right,
That's not an option for me, right? And for many of us Black women who I primarily cater to, that also is not an option for us, right? And then also they were like, well, you can go for grants. And I'm like, I had the idea at the time, the belief that
right,
grants were not readily accessible to people like us, which in part is true, but I didn't
right,
know what I know now, right?
right.
They said you can go to an investor, but there are some risks involved in that as well.
hmm
And then they said, there are other things like debt, which is where the credit piece also came up. It was just like you can
Right,
also, leverage your credit or max out a credit card or get debt or build your business credit. And
right.
that's how this whole funding, business credit, personal credit, grants, friends and family funding situation came from. And it turned into something that I truly had I never saw any of this coming.
hmm
I've traveled far and wide to give these presentations, to speak about this topic, to really help entrepreneurs understand that funding is, when you're speaking to someone who's going to give you money, it's a
Right,
language. They speak a certain language.
hmm
Like, money has a language around it. Like the same way, like when you're going through something, or when you're speaking to someone who's not familiar with your with your industry or your market
Right.
or what you do for work, there's jargon related to that
Right.
industry.
Right.
Money has a jargon. And that's the
Right.
same thing with funding. So when you're presenting in front of these funders and you're saying, for example, I have a business and I'm saying, hey, my business is drowning, I need money, they're not funding that. They're not
Mhm.
funding businesses that are drowning. They're funding businesses that are saying, I have this great idea. This is the market research I've done behind it. This is the opportunity. This is what I projected it can do. It can trend with the market. This is all the pieces that I put together about why it will be successful and how I plan on it being successful. And that's what gets funded.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And you brought up a couple of key points that I want to touch on. First
Yeah.
was that you went out and asked. And
Oh
that
yeah.
is such an important piece.
Hmm.
We have to be willing to get out of our comfort zone as entrepreneurs and go out and ask, reaching out to
Hmm.
people in your social network, reaching out to people in the community who are small business
Yeah.
owners, friends and family. Be willing to put yourself out there and ask, how did you
Yeah.
become successful? How did you get
Hmm.
the funding for your business? How are you paying your employees and paying
Yeah.
yourself? And I think a lot of times what I've seen is people fear being rejected, they fear being embarrassed, they fear not looking educated when they're having these conversations.
Hmm.
But you have to be willing to get over all of that, right? You have to
Yeah.
be willing to say, I'm going to put all of my pride aside and I'm
Hmm.
going to ask those around me who are already doing the work. And so when
Yes.
you're working with entrepreneurs, whether they're deep in the game or they're newbies, what are some ways that you look to help them overcome that fear and their pride and embarrassment, really?
Yeah. So that's a great question. So first and foremost, we have a community called the Six Figure Grant Winner Community. And within that community, first and foremost, my number one objective is to create a nurturing environment because I
Right,
understand on a very cellular level, we are primed and like positioned not to open our mouth and ask because we're taught, and I've heard this like this exact verbiage. I don't want to seem like I'm asking for a handout. And I'm just like, but you are, and that's
right,
okay. Like, but you are, and that's fine.
right.
Like that's normal. Like we are gonna, matter of fact, you better
Nothing
get
wrong
in
with that.
position to ask for a handout for the
Right,
duration
right,
of your business. Okay. Like and with that being said, like kind of creating an environment where that's now normalized, not in a donation or charity type of way because we're pitying ourselves, but because this is a
hmm
normal part of business. We are normalizing the conversations around money and understanding that this is kind of how the country works. Like this is how businesses work. When you get to a place where you can no longer capitalize your business without either dipping into your margins or compromising them,
right.
then you need to go ask for help and support somewhere, right? This is normal. So one is creating that nurturing environment, and then two, it's normalizing the
That's right.
conversations. And then reinforcing it because it's one thing to say yes, ask for
I'm
help, and then
sorry,
when
you're
help is
frozen.
asked for, you don't
Um,
come through, but
I
then
can't
you
see, I
also
can't
have to
tell if
set
you're still
boundaries.
talking.
I'm sorry, one more time.
There we go. So, then you're absolutely right. It's
Mhm.
very important. And I appreciate you saying that you create a nurturing environment because that's what
Yeah.
we need, especially entrepreneurs who look like us, right? Who are
Yeah.
women, who are minorities, African American. They need to have that kind of community of support that will help guide them along the way and instill that confidence because that's what you need.
Yeah.
You need that confidence and that assurity to know that someone else has already done it. If I can do it, you can do it too. Another
100%.
point that you touched on was bootstrapping. And
Yeah.
bootstrapping, you hear it so much in the business world, right?
Hmm.
Bootstrapping, friends and family. But the reality is that's not always feasible for Black Americans and for
No.
women, for people who look like us and come from our culture. Our families just don't always have the resources and the finances to help fund our multi-million dollar dream. And
Yeah.
so when you're having these conversations with entrepreneurs, in addition to nurturing them and encouraging them to get around their fear of being seen, what are some of the conversations that you all have around coming out of the mind frame of you're going to be able to bootstrap? Because the reality of it is a lot of these people are working side hustles. They're funding the business themselves on top of running their own household and paying their bills. They can't bootstrap.
I I have a very I have a twofold approach to that question, right? because I understand financially how there are some people who just do not have the room to do that, right? So
Right.
I'm gonna speak to that person because that's essentially what your question is, right?
Right.
There is, unfortunately, I haven't found the solution to it yet, but there's
Right.
only really one of two ways to do it. Either find the money or learn the skills that you're deficient in,
Right.
right? So whatever, and you're always paying something. Like there's always an expense. So you're either
Mhm.
expensing money or you're expensing the time that it's going to take to learn the skill to do it yourself. Like so, when I hear people, because I hear it all the time, when I hear people say something like, "I don't have the money," that's not really an excuse.
Right.
I'm saying that as someone who did this with zero.
Right.
$0, all right? I had a
Mhm.
PayPal account, I had a hope and a dream, all right? Shout out to
Right.
PayPal, okay? All right, so $0. I was out there running my mouth, telling everybody my name, telling everyone
Right.
in these rooms, telling everyone what I did, following up, just expensing the time and building the skills, getting rejected, getting back on that feedback, like that, the legwork. That's all you could
Right.
do, right?
Right.
So until you get your first client or the first person who will believe in you, and then you build on that, right?
Right.
So that's kind of the way that you have to build on that and build on that expense.
Mhm.
People don't want to do that, and and it's going to force you to be creative. That's the thing. And if you don't want to do that, that's cool. More room for the people who will, and that's just
Absolutely.
what it is, right? So people like me are happy for people like you who don't want to do it, because that leaves
Right.
room for me to be able to come in and be like, all right, cool, now let me get creative about how I'm going to add value to someone so I can sit under them and learn about this thing that I don't know that will allow me to build a skill. Let me not ask for a handout, let me bring value, right? Because what
Right.
I don't have, let me see what I can bring to this person so that they can feel that there's an exchange of value, so that they don't feel like they're wasting their time, right? So
Absolutely.
you got to get real creative real quick, and be willing to put in the time, because guess what, whether it took me 3 years before I got my first grant check,
Mhm.
but those 3 years were going to pass anyway.
Right.
So I could have spent those 3 years
Absolutely.
twiddling my thumb trying to figure it out, or be bit thinking about it, you know what I'm saying?
Right. Right.
Or I could have been proactive and trying to put myself in position, even though it meant a lot of sleepless nights and a lot of, you know, eating crap from people that I
Right.
didn't want to eat crap from, but I learned and I earned.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, you're right. And it's very much a either you're gonna stand there or you're gonna jump off the porch, right?
Listen.
And what I tell people is if you jump and you fall and you trip, you bust your lip, you break your ankle, you drag yourself to the next destination. You take your
Period.
broken ankle and you keep going.
Yeah.
And you're right. A lot of times people don't want to do that. And I
Yeah.
believe it is a lot of it's because of um it's fear. I think that fear
Yeah.
plays a big part into it. I think the lack of education plays a big part into it. But another thing that you said that really stood out, and I know that you see this often because I've been in your TikTok comments, I get the
Mhm.
same type of comments is I don't have any money.
Yeah.
I need somebody to give me some money. I don't have any money. And you made a
Yeah.
great point in no one wants to fund you simply because you're broke. That's the
No.
reality. A
No.
lot of people, it's a lot of broke people out here,
Yeah.
right? And so nobody wants to say, "Oh, here's a $250,000 check to go and fund your
Mhm.
business because you were broke." The
Yeah.
reality is I'm funding you because you have an idea that I believe in, and you're selling this story in a
Yeah.
way that makes me want to open my pocketbook. And so, in
Mhm.
your experience, when you're having those conversations, how are you helping your clients, your team, your community overcome that? I'm broke. Somebody needs to give me some money so I can get this business up and running.
Okay. I love that question because it assumes that I do help. I don't.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Mm-mm.
That's good.
So yeah, no. I understand my place
No,
in
I
life.
love that. I love that because
Yeah. Mm-mm.
sometimes you get to a point where you're like, if this is where you still are, then you're
Yeah.
not ready for what I have to offer. You're
No.
still at square one, and that's okay. There's someone
Yeah.
out there for you who is
Yeah.
willing to do that work. But if
Mm-hmm.
that's where you are, what we have here in our community, it's not a good fit yet. It doesn't
No.
mean you're not going to get there.
No.
But today, as it stands, with this thought process, with this train of thought and this mentality, you're not ready, and that's okay.
No.
And so you have those conversations
Yeah.
with
Yeah. Yeah.
potential clients.
No. I really don't.
Okay.
So my mentor very early on told me that amateurs convince
Hmm.
and professionals sort. So you either try to sit there and convince someone that they're either ready or they're, this is good for them or whatever the case may be, right? Which is an expense, always an expense. You're always
Right.
expensing something, right? An expense of your time, your effort, their frustration. There's always an expense on both parts, right?
Hmm.
Or you can sort and you can
Right.
realize, all right, this person is in this box and that person is in that box. So now speaking of boxes, this is not a judgment. This is a
Hmm.
psychological principle. If you are interested, I would suggest that you read a book called um I'm gonna have to get the book title for you, but it's a psychology book about change, right?
Right.
And that book, it's about change, behavioral change though. And
Right.
what you understand is that there's 6 stages of behavioral change. And depending on where the person is on that spectrum, they may not be ready enough to make the change, right? Because
Absolutely.
when you are ready, nothing will stop you, right?
Right.
When you have had enough to eat, you cannot take another bite. When you are tired of being beat, you're gonna leave. When you are
Right.
tired of when your hair is messed up and you just can't walk out the house anymore, you have to do something about it. You know what
Right.
I mean?
Right.
Like, you are not acceptable into society. You got to do something, right? So
Right.
like when you're tired of being overweight, you're gonna go to the gym. Like this, and I'm not. This is not a call out. This is a call in to the reality
Absolutely.
of us being prepared. There's one of the stages is preparation, and that's
Absolutely.
being able to, and one of the stages is awareness. Like when you are aware of where you are, like where you are in the, because there's a stage where you're not even aware,
Right.
right? So once you come into awareness and you're like, oh wait, there is a problem that needs to be solved, and then I need to prepare for it. They're probably in the preparation stage where they're interested, but they're not really committed yet. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? So
Hmm.
I understand that that's where they're at, and I just kind of sort them into that box, and I just keep producing the value and the content that they need while they're in that preparation stage. But I'm not for the person in the preparation stage. I'm for the person who is tired of applying
Absolutely.
and getting denied. I'm for the person who wants to understand that business is not today. Funding is
Absolutely.
not just to kind of get a check, just to be able to get by, to run a business. Funding is a fundamental part of your business. You are going to be asking for money until you exit, period. Right?
Absolutely.
I'm for the person who wants to understand how to strategize, who wants to implement how to move through business like a snake,
Right.
not
Right. Right.
sneaky,
Right.
but like they're malleable. They
Hmm.
can bend, they can move, they can squeeze into different spots. You got to be like water. You got to be able to conform to the space that you're in. And unless you have that mutable mind, you don't have that fixed mind that this is how it has to be, and I don't want to do this and I don't want to do
Right.
that, and I can't uh I can't funding is not for me, and I'm broke, it has to be a better way, and blah blah blah. This is the way it is now.
Right.
This
Right.
is our reality now. So that's who I'm working with. Those are my people, and I understand that,
Absolutely.
so I sort accordingly. Yeah.
And I'm sure having that system in place helps you stay fit mentally, right? Because it is
Yeah.
taxing.
Yeah.
It can be taxing trying to do the pulling and the
Yeah.
pushing,
Yeah.
and especially when you're dealing with someone or people who are just not ready to put in the
Yeah.
work, like you said. And so
Mhm.
I commend you for understanding your boundaries and sticking to your boundaries
Yeah.
and knowing what works well for you and frankly what doesn't work well for you, and that's okay. And I think a lot of times when you're in the coaching and consulting space, especially if you're someone that's new and starting out, you want to take in
Mhm.
everything, right? Because you're trying to make money, you're trying
Yeah.
to get your feet off the ground, you're trying to get your business
Mhm.
up and running. But eventually you get to a point where you're ready to pivot and you say, actually, this type of client does not work for me because it is
Yeah.
physically and mentally taxing, and it does not serve me well within my business. And I think it takes a strong individual to set that type of boundary for their business. So congratulations to you. That is
Yeah.
wonderful.
Yeah.
So give us
So,
key three. Oh, go ahead.
no, I was gonna say it's as much as it is a level of their preparation too. I want to say that if you are interested, because I also run across a lot of people who are interested in getting to this space, it's a sign of leadership, right? It's a sign of
Hmm.
your leadership as well. Because if you did accept that, what would you be saying to the consumer?
Right.
Right. So just that level of awareness of understanding for yourself of where you are and where you want to be, you're it's I understand, and I receive your compliment. I'm not taking away from it in any way, but it's not only a function of the strength, but it's also a function of me being a reflection of what I want for them to
Right.
be able to get to the place where they understand where they are and where the value that they're bringing and what they like actually getting to that stage. And
Hmm.
if I'm reflecting that, then
Absolutely.
maybe that will kind of trigger something or spark something in their minds, which is my hope. Yeah.
Right. Absolutely. So, what are three key things that you look for before you decide to jump on as a grant consulting for someone?
Good question. One of the first things is, are they established as
Hmm.
a business? Do you have an EIN? Do you have an LLC? How long have you been in business? Are you profitable? That's not a hard and fast thing, but I just want to know, are you generating any revenue? And if you are generating any revenue, are you profitable? Because those are
Right.
not the same thing. Um,
Absolutely.
so I also want to know what you need the funds for, because
Hmm.
again, no one's saving a sinking ship. So if you're telling me you want
Absolutely.
to fund a project versus you need to make rent this month, probably not. You need relief,
Right.
not grants, right? Or maybe you need a relief grant, but
Right.
not funding, right? So there's that. I also want to know about the project, because some projects, quite frankly, are not good. All right.
Absolutely. Right.
There's no unique value to it. Um and there's nothing wrong with and there's something wrong with the internet. It's nothing wrong with being a product that has the same quality, right? So for example, we hear things like online, primarily social media,
Hmm.
that says that, you can start your business in this industry because there's a million bread bags in the same aisle. Yeah, but if you go down the aisle, you will understand that they're all speaking to totally different people
Right.
at totally different price points. They have all totally different manufacturing processes, product, ingredients.
Hmm.
They're talking when they built out their ideal consumer, they knew who they were speaking to, and their value
Right.
proposition is clear depending on who they're speaking to. Like, the bread I buy is not the bread my
Absolutely.
sister buys, is not the bread my mama buys, because we all
Right.
value very different things. I'll pay $7 for a bag of bread. My mama will look at me like I'm crazy. You understand what I
Right.
mean? So that's why, like, you need to be able to express that. But if they don't if they just tell me that they're running a lash company, and I use lashes because I feel like I see lash companies all the time, so it's just
Hmm.
always in my face. There's
Right.
nothing wrong with running a lash company. But if you're telling me you're in beauty, or if you can even articulate that you're in beauty, a lot of them don't know that, right? So if you can articulate that you're in beauty and what you sell and what's different about what you're doing and what you plan on doing, that's a really big criteria, because I can't fund, well, not personally, but I can't really think about how I'm going to support funding for a lash company, because it really turns into an idea incubator
Right.
where I'm building out the ideas for you, where I'm giving you the ideas
Absolutely.
about how to be different, where I'm really giving you the strategy on how you can diversify your revenue. I don't want to do that. You should come prepared for that.
Absolutely.
There are incubators for that. We have done trainings for that. Um, and we find that people don't value that, because they
Hmm.
they value their ideas, right?
Right.
So
Absolutely.
So it's a double-edged sword. I don't know, but that's the second thing for sure, like where you are as far as your value and what you're doing for your projects. And then the third thing is the founder. How teachable are they?
Mhm. Mhm.
Because
Yes. Preach.
I'm just gonna keep that right there because I don't want to drag nobody today. Okay,
Please.
I don't
Please.
want to drag anybody on today,
But
but
no, I think it's important that it is important that people hear these conversations because
yeah,
sometimes they do need to be a little they need to be set in reality, right?
yeah,
Because we're in the age of social media. Everything
yeah,
is readily available. It's in our face. You
hmm
can hop on TikTok and see a million small businesses, a million
yeah,
entrepreneurs who are
hmm
selling you this story,
yeah,
and the reality of it is someone needs to be telling them the truth. And being a teachable founder is 100% something that you need to really focus on. You need to look inside and say, am I going to be able to be receptive to what is being fed to me, to the coaching and to what is being presented in front of me? How
right,
can I receive that? And then again, putting my pride to the side and all of my what I envision things should look like,
right,
and learn from the person who is trying to teach me to get to the next step, who is trying to
right.
teach me what I need to do to get funding for my business.
Right. Yeah. 100%. And I make it very clear, like, I'm not the authority on your business. You
Hmm.
are. Like, I can only guide you into how to really articulate it. I'm not trying to change your business. I'm not trying to take your business. I quite literally have no equity in your
Right.
business. Like, whether you succeed or fail only helps me because now I have a success story, right? I
Absolutely.
have an
Absolutely.
example of this framework works. That's the only equity I have in your business. If you make a
Hmm.
dollar, I don't. So when I kind of put it that way to people, they're just like, okay, well, I guess, but
Right.
if you're not teachable, it's going to be hard. And that is demonstrated by you can see it with people that don't ask for feedback, who don't like conduct
Right.
surveys, who don't want to hear that their ideas are not good ideas, and that it's going to be harmful. Let me just say that it's
Yeah.
harmful, and it's going to be easily one of the things that contributes to how quickly your business is able to succeed.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
No, you're absolutely right. And that's great. That's great information. And again, I think that we need to have people hear that information, especially women, especially underrepresented and
yeah,
underserved communities and entrepreneurs who are trying to build something bigger and better for themselves and their community and
yeah.
the generations to come. But the reality of it is there are steps that you need to take first
hmm
to get to where it is that you're trying to get. And
hmm
so after you have taken on your client and you've made sure they check all the boxes, then from there, is that when you all start getting into the funding space?
Yeah, so we build out a extensive proposal, right? This proposal is upwards of 40 pages, and it is just detailing
Wow.
your business, the risk, your competitors, your target market, your impact, community, who you
Hmm.
serve, what you do, your pricing strategy, everything. Like, I mean, your projections. It's a complete breakdown of your business. So if you
Absolutely.
had any questions and you weren't sure, you're gonna find out. If you're gonna know now. So
Right, right,
that's in preparation for your business plan, and then that's in
right.
preparation for ultimately your pitch deck. And then my goal with the funding formula training is to get you to a point where it's automated. So we're using tools like ChatGPT, of course,
Absolutely.
Bard, Perplexity
Absolutely.
AI, Claude, and we're also offloading this because we are business owners. We do not work in our
Hmm.
businesses, we work on our businesses. So I give
Absolutely.
you guys the tools that you need to, including like the workflow, the job description, the tools and criteria that the individual will need to be able to successfully uh, source applications or different opportunities on your behalf, as well as apply for you. Right? There's an
Right.
approval process for them to get it to you, get it back. And then plus the community, plus the podcast, like everything together, I think is why the people who really use everything as as one unit really have been successful, have seen the changes
Absolutely.
in their business. Yeah.
That's great. That's awesome. I think it's wonderful that you put everything together in a nice package for them so
Hmm.
they can really, really sit with that and think and
Yeah.
deep dive into, okay, what is the realistic goals that I
Yeah.
have for my
Yeah.
business? Realistically, where are we financially? Realistically, where are we trying to be? What
Yeah.
communities are we serving? What is this opportunity so that I'm prepared to, like you said, present your business idea in a way that makes someone say, here's some cash for you to grow and
Yeah.
succeed, and not
Yeah.
just, I have this business idea, please give me some money. And so I think that's wonderful. And when you all are having this access to capital conversations, are you
Mhm.
focusing more on grants, more on debt funding? Kind of where do you find the balance, and how do you determine which is best for a particular business?
The industry determines it. I really don't. So, for example, some businesses, depending on the risk, depending on
Hmm.
the age, depending on the product, it really depending
Right.
on the founder, right? If the founder is even positioned to get debt, they that might be the best option for them because, for example, I just happen to, I don't know how it happened, but I just happen to have a lot of real estate clients. Maybe it's because of the credit piece, but a lot of my clients come from real estate. So grants don't necessarily help them the most.
Right.
There are grants though, don't get me wrong. There's a lot of
Hmm.
public, private kind of opportunities. The government supports, the private entities, the foundation
Right.
support, the nonprofit support, but um, debt is going to be what you want, right? So
Right.
get a property, you make sure that it's going to bring you capital.
Right.
You stabilize it, then you flip it, right? Or you flip it, or you bring the lease in so that you can work the lease into the total value of the loan or the amount that you're going to qualify for. So there's a couple different ways to play with that. But real estate, I'm almost going to be like, well, which debt product are you going to buy? You
Right.
know what I mean? Like
Right.
which debt product are we going to explore? But someone who's in like skincare, I'm like, there's a lot of opportunities in skincare right now. Like it seems like everyone wants to present skincare
Absolutely.
businesses with grants. So let's explore skincare. So the one young lady who actually is in my six-figure grant winner community, she actually takes the training too. She's been able to get a lot of opportunities just because that's what the season is right now, right? But
Right.
a year ago, everyone was funding healthcare, right?
Right.
So you just got to be prepared. So when your season comes,
That's right. You can jump on it.
but
Right.
yeah,
Right.
you could jump on it. But um, yeah, it really depends. The market kind of calls for it, but like I have another young lady who has THC products, but grant funders don't want to touch that with a
Right.
10-foot
Right.
pole. And alcohol is another one that people don't really touch too
Mhm.
much.
Mhm.
What else? Like marijuana, like actual marijuana, not THC, but CBD, excuse me.
Right.
CBD and THC are two that, they don't want to touch. Guns are another one that they don't really want to touch too much. Sometimes financial services, they don't really want to touch
Right.
too much either. Consulting and professional services, sometimes they're just like, So it really depends. Like, but there's a season for all of it.
Absolutely.
Typically, if you pay attention, it's like heavy concentration around April when they're trying to get those funds off, right?
Yep.
And then another heavy concentration around October, November, December when they're trying to get those funds off again.
Mhm.
So just like check all year. We have a list that
Absolutely.
gives you those opportunities, but then also just check more heavily around those times of year for what might fit for you.
That's great. That's
Yeah.
awesome. So tell the people where they can join your community,
Yeah.
how they can follow you. Tell them,
Mhm.
how can they get in contact with you?
Sure. So TikTok and Instagram are where I'm the most active. I'm Mental Money Podcast on TikTok. The link is in my bio for everything. Right.
Okay.
The
Right. Right.
the community, the training is I'm doing it cohort style because I'm doing it like I'm very interactive with the people who are taking the training. So I don't
That's
want
good.
I don't want it to be like, oh, you're just taking a course and then now you are figuring it out, right? So
Right.
cohort two's waitlist is open, but it's not
Okay.
active yet. So it's not available yet. But um, so you can join the waitlist for cohort two if you're interested. The podcast is on all major platforms. And the links are available in all the bios. And if you want to get a strategy session, the link is available there too.
Awesome. That's
Yeah.
great. Well, thank you so much, Nathalie. It was great talking to you. You're a wealth of information.
Yeah,
I know that people are going to have questions and they're going to
yeah,
win as a part two because
yeah.
you just obviously have, like I said, a treasure of resources and knowledge. And it was great talking to you today. Thank you so much for joining. And we look forward to what you are building and working on in the future.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you.